means surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. So, this is controversial.
How can I convince you when your ears refuse to hear? You turn your heart away from me each time when I draw near. Your eyes appeal to me, mine they glance away in fear. As if you do not look at you, now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Blaine Donnelly show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. Well, it doesn't show. How can I contain this anguish and this pain, knowing that your eyes are blinded by the lies?
He is the free American, Clay Douglas. Catch the Free American weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Every time I think about the damage that's been done, the anger wells inside me till I'm almost overcome. I want to tear the moon out of the sky and drop the sun. Why do I feel so awesome like I'm the one?
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Your soulmate knows darkness will divide eternity. Like petty thieves who thunder in the shadows of the night. They break inside and enter through the windows of your mind.
Fire and fight. That symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty.
Real clear years ago in Walton, South Georgia. Cane pole and crossman in my hands, all I needed to be grown up. Homemade ice cream and barbecue and the family on Friday nights. 10-lane ramp on Saturday right before the morning light. Came a time I was old enough and I learned about the gun. And every night in summertime I answered to what I'd done. Today wasn't I found the way it used to be. They got no respect and no cold steel, just games on TV. I'm burning hell before I sell my rights away from me. It's high time we embrace the truth that keeps all men free.
Good morning, Revolution Radio listeners. Great United States have mountains to straight from Texas. It's time for Clayton Douglas, the Free American. Take it away, Clayton.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. My guest today is Wayne Walton, and Wayne has created something called Mountain Hours. Now, on Friday, we interviewed the founder of Ithaca Hours. Wayne, what possessed you to do this, to start your own money system?
Well, effectively, it's creating our own money is the only thing that threatens the the bankers which rule the government.
Well, that's absolutely true, and you know, I've often I've been trying to inform people and tell people about this whole New World Order plan. Been around for a long time. You know, fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto is central bank, and we've had that for 100 years. And I think you've got the right idea. Did you? Now, I did stories on Ithaca Hours 15, 20 years ago. Was that part of your inspiration?
Yeah, initially when I woke up, I was a supporter of like Ron Paul and the gold and silver solution, and then as I investigated that further, I came to understand that the same people that control the Fed also control gold and silver, so that's a loyal opposition solution. Then I kind of gravitated a little bit to Bill Still and Ellen Brown with the greenbacker solution. But even with that system, number one, it requires a vote, and the corrupt aren't going to vote it in. And in addition to that, Lincoln prosecuted a genocide and tyranny under that system. It still has a centralization system, and it still provides for cronyism for the elite. Whereas with this system, it's the exact opposite of what we have right now. The money's created as a credit, and it's issued by the have-nots. We ourselves, us human beings, we are the value that creates the currency. Money is simply just an IOU issued by a producer. A farmer can issue an IOU for wheat during the wintertime when he can't deliver his product. You know, the farmer doesn't have any wheat in the wintertime, so if he issues an IOU for wheat to be delivered upon the harvest, he can use that IOU that he issues in order to purchase something from another producer. So through that path, you're able to issue currency locally, organically, and it's issued by the people themselves, and it allows them to be the sufferers.
It's a wonderful solution. Kennedy tried to do that with Executive Order 1110, and they immediately assassinated him, which is actually the weak point, one of the weak points of this whole system by governance by proxy that we've got here, isn't it? If the leader ain't doing what you want, you just shoot him. And they tried to do that to Andrew Jackson. Of course, they did that to Lincoln too. Whether he was a good guy or a bad guy, he still wasn't working with the bankers. Bill.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, money is simply an energy exchange system, and if some entity, whether it's the government or private corporations, control that energy exchange system, it's used as a methodology of dominating the have-not.
And of course, plank number 9 of the Communist Manifesto is corporate farms. Can you say Monsanto or Archer Daniels Midland?
Yeah, I always say that, from the Bible, I go, this has been around a lot longer than the Federal Reserve. This is from the Bible. Jews, Christians, and Muslims forbid usury for thousands of years. And usury means interest on money, but it also means any monetary system that's not issued by you. So if, for instance, for your radio show, you can issue an IOU or a gift certificate for advertising. So by creating that IOU, it allows for you to be sovereign because you have control of your energy. When you're controlling your energy, then you're in charge. You're responsible for how your energy is used. If you're using somebody else's money, they're going to use your energy for their purposes, whereas if you issue currency for your purposes, then you are responsible to make sure that it's not being done where your energy isn't being used against you.
It's a good plan. And it's being successful. You know, what I've told people is that we've actually had the answers. We've to all of our problems. to all of our problems. And we've had them for 100 years. I mean, energy, money, everything. I mean, we can't take this back from the Federal Reserve. This isn't their little scheme isn't written in stone, is it?
Well, again, this is more than the Federal Reserve, because the bankers were running the show prior to the Federal Reserve. You know, the currency we had then was gold and silver, and you know, just imagine, for instance, Texas were to secede from the Union. Texas has no gold and silver mines, so if Texas were to adopt gold and silver as their currency, they wouldn't be a sovereign nation, because they would be dependent upon some outside entity for their monetary system. So in the same way, the United States immediately lost its sovereignty. It declared independence, won a war for independence. However, the bankers financed both sides of the war with gold and silver, and it required the war payments to be repaid in gold and silver, and the colonies have no gold and silver mines. So how could the colonists, or the former colonists, be independent when they have no gold and silver mines, but in the meantime they wrote up in the Constitution that they have to have gold and silver for money? So they gave up their sovereignty as soon as they required gold and silver for money, and it made them dependent upon the Bank of England, who was the real sovereign of England at the time, not the king. In the same way, right now, the president isn't the sovereign of the United States. It's the bankers who are the sovereigns, because they control the monetary system. The United States had a national debt. Therefore, you know, any nation that has a national debt isn't sovereign. The phrase from the Bible is borrower is slave to the lender. So if you don't create your own money, you're dependent upon somebody else. You go into debt, you pay that debt with interest, and eventually, because interest is applied, eventually you'll default and give up your assets, give up your sovereignty, etc., etc. So this goes to the Bible. Usury is the issue. The Federal Reserve is a symptom of usury. So the issue is that people need to create their own money themselves. You know, simply abolishing the Federal Reserve doesn't fix the root cause of evil.
Now, I am a firm believer in independence, and I'm a firm believer in self-sufficiency. My friend Richard Kelly Hoskins, who is on my show numerous times in the past, said that the basis of every civilization is the self-sufficient family farm. And that's what they go after. That's anytime a communist regime comes into an area, they go after the self-sufficient family farms. And this is really not only is the family farm basis of civilization, every civilization, but it's the way we generate our capital from our labor and from the just what God gave us, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately all of this comes down to independence. So as a nation to be independent has to create its own money, it has to create its own products, it has to be able to be self-sufficient. So that applies to us individually as much as to our communities. So individually we should try to be as self-sufficient as possible. As a community we should try to be as self-sufficient as possible. And usury is a system whereby the parasite slowly destroys the independence of the producer. So that manifests itself in many different ways, in the form of, you know, usurping self-sufficient farms, self-sufficient communities, and self-sufficient nations.
Now, the system you've set up, is this these mountain hours here, mountain money, whatever? It's based in Colorado right now, and I think this is a very, very strong part of the answers. One of the other answers that people are instituting over in Oklahoma, they're setting up a food co-op, so that the individual farmers, if they're doing organic food, non-GMO poison food, poison just built right in here. The they are hooking up a lot of people in the city with a lot of independent farmers, and it seems to be working well. They've got several thousand members here, and as I looked at all of this, I see the mountain hours playing a very strong role in the co-op we're trying to put together nationally. We'd like to do this nationally. And my question is, really, can we use mountain hours nationally? Is it limited to certain businesses? Or is there a way we can work together and use this money that you've created? I mean, it's possible that we can, if you live over on the East Coast, we can set you up with Ithaca hours. If you live in Colorado, and frankly, I'm really leaning to Colorado as being the first truly free state out there. What about this? How far can we expand this?
Our design for this is to set these up county by county. We don't want to set up a new centralized system to replace the existing centralized system. And the reason why the county is a great threshold is the sheriff of the county is the chief law enforcement officer. So we have something called the Jubilee Sheriff. The Jubilee Sheriff will be the sheriff who protects the people from the bankers. And the bankers currently have their tyranny enforced by the existing sheriff, who enforces the fraud of usury, which eventually leads to bankruptcies and foreclosures. Any contract based on usury is void because usury creates unpayable contracts. There's always far more debt than there is money to pay it. So it's 100% certain over time that there'll be foreclosures. Even if there was no Federal Reserve whatsoever, even if there was just 1,000 banks loaning money at interest locally, interest-based contracts lead to defaults. It's guaranteed mathematically because it's a game of musical chairs. So because that's a form of fraud, it's essential that right now there's a phrase that goes, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So whoever's paying the sheriff, if it's private bankers with private bank money, whether it's in the form of Federal Reserve notes, gold or silver, if the usurer is paying the sheriff is always going to represent the interests of the usurer. He's always going to enforce the liens, the foreclosures, the income taxes, property taxes, victimless crimes. Well, the sheriff can block all of them, but he's only going to do that once we pay the sheriff with the people's money, which is usury-free. Mountain hours and Ithaca hours is issued without interest or debt. So that is the path to flipping the pyramid. We have to get the sheriff to work for the people rather than the bankers, and that is the path where we can have massive abundance. So, getting to your point, is our intention is to set these up county by county. We have mountain hours here in Summit County. Down in Denver, we set up mile-high hours. We intend that every county in the country should set up their own monetary system, and we're setting up a replicatable system where people can just duplicate what we're doing.
I've said if we grow our own food and generate our own power from everything God gave us, we don't really have any need for the bankers or the government.
Well, the government has been usurped by the users. That's the whole thing. Is for us to really become independent is just do the opposite of what the system is. Create things locally. We've been colonized through globalism and usury. So the equal and opposite force from globalism is localism, and You know, I built an off-grid solar property, which is 40 acres up in northern Colorado. It has its own solar and own water supply, and it's got herds of antelope that run through it. But I did that out of fear, and you know, I can be self-sufficient there, but the real path is for the good guys to go on the offensive and create sovereign and self-sufficient local communities, not to go hide out. I'm a Christian, and I don't, you know, Christ didn't go hide out. Christ went on the offensive and turned the tables on the money changers, and I believe that's, I should be his vessel, and I'm going to do the same thing to the best of my ability, turn the tables, allow the people to create their own money themselves, become self-sufficient locally. But what's nice about using the tool of money, it allows us to have, we all have unique and individual gifts. I don't think it's the optimal system. You know, I'm not I can go be a rancher, I can go grow my own stuff, but that's not the optimal thing for me to do. My gifts are networking with people or recruiting businesses to join the currency system, and by doing so, we can create local independence within a community. We can still have specialization where we all have unique skills, and we optimize those skills through the technology of money. However, by issuing the currency ourselves, we can remove the parasitism from the system. We can still take care of, you know, there's always going to be people in need. It's our responsibility to take care of everyone. Our humanity is judged in such a manner. This isn't like a libertarian sink or swim kind of thing, and the survival of the fittest sort of thing. This is a path for massive abundance. We're not talking about a system where we just go live off grid and just survive. This is a technology which allows us to to thrive, to live in massive abundance. And the way we live in massive abundance is that we all work in the vocation of our passion, and that's when we're all happiest. You know, I'm sure what you're doing right here with your work, this is something that you do for your soul. You probably don't make a lot of money doing it. Often, many patriots don't. But this is, that you should be able to do that. That's what we should all be able to do, is work in a vocation of our passion. And an abundant money system allows for us to do that. Think of how many bad guys in the dominant system, they're making heaps and heaps of money. Actors and bankers and politicians and athletes and entertainers, they're living in massive abundance because they're willing to deceive and enslave their brothers and sisters. Well, we have to create an entirely opposite energy system, an opposite monetary system that rewards the people who want to help them become emancipated, sovereign, and independent.
Well, they've tried to demonize the whole term sovereign. They've killed people over that. You know, they don't want you to be independent. I know a lot of people over the last 25 years. I've interviewed a lot of people that have built carburetors. I know people that built a Pogue carburetor. I know people that were getting 70 miles a gallon on their trucks. That's against the law. They don't want you to be productive. They don't want you to sit. And I really believe we've actually got the people out there. You know, they've really got the talent and the ability to stand up against these bankers if they do it in their community. I love the idea of the counties. I love restoring the counties. If you want to be in start a militia, do it in the sheriff's office. I did it in New Mexico in the governor's office. You know, nothing wrong with defending yourself. Nothing wrong with having a defense force. Nothing wrong with supporting your veterans once they've come home from illegal wars. You know, don't demonize the veterans. They didn't want to go over there. But they can be used to defend us, to help Americans. And I believe we could actually do this. Now, I used to live out on 5 acres out in 40 miles from anywhere. I couldn't get anybody to come out there. Wayne, nobody, we got jobs. I can't leave the city. I got a job here. I got a house here. I got everything here. I can't leave. I can't go there. So they're really trapped in a slave system. If we change the way we're thinking and think of using your money, and I want you to address something for me here. You know, what about counterfeiting? It's beautiful money. I've got it up on my website. It's a beautiful hours, whatever you want to call it. It's a receipt for your labor. Basically, you do $20 worth of labor, you get a bill for it that you can pass to somebody else and they can use. It's a system built on your productivity. Whatever it is, if you make solar panels for your neighbors in your garage and you get paid in hours and you sell it for hours, I mean, that seems to me then you're becoming self-sufficient. And if you turn that backyard of crabgrass into a garden, you can pretty much feed your whole neighborhood, couldn't you?
But yeah, the reason why we use time as the denomination is that, number one, it avoids any confusion with the dominant dollar system. So there's no threat that they can say that we're counterfeiting their system, because we're not. It's not even, denominated in dollars. So there's two reasons for that. In addition, number one, time is the only commodity. Time is the only commodity which the have-nots control. The major commodities such as oil, uranium, diamonds, gold, silver, you name it, those commodities are all controlled by the elite. Whereas time is a commodity that both the rich man and the poor man have equal quantities of. So that's one essential aspect. And then another essential aspect is that everybody knows what an hour is. An hour is a fixed denomination, like an inch, whereas a dollar or even an ounce of silver, an ounce of gold, that's a moving quantity. It goes up and down and all around. So does the Federal Reserve note or a dollar. They're not a fixed number. Whereas an hour, 1,000 years ago or 1,000 years in the future, an hour always stays the same amount. And because of that, the base unit of value in this system is the hour of an unskilled labor. So, 50 years ago, if somebody mowed your grass, or if somebody mows your grass today, it takes them roughly about the same amount of time. Aside from technology or shoveling snow. So if they're not using equipment, they're just shoveling like a driveway, it takes roughly about the same amount of time now as it did then. So when you use that as a fixed value, that's what an unskilled laborer earns in the system. Whereas a semi-skilled or a highly skilled person, they make multiple quantities of that. So if a doctor who now makes, say, $150 an hour, they would make $15 per hour, because the way the system works is 1 hour is equivalent to 10 Federal Reserve notes. And the reason why we have it attached to the Federal Reserve system is, we have businesses that sell stuff. Let's say you sell a T-shirt, a T-shirt shop. Well, when we get a T-shirt shop to join our system, we don't go in there and scare the pants off and say, join the system, the bankers control everything, there's going to be a currency collapse. You don't want to go in there and be a big scaremonger. You just say, hey, we live in a tough economy, money is scarce, we want to support the local, buy local, we want more people to shop here at your local independent business. You're talking to a mom and pop business owner. They want people to shop there instead of going to Walmart. So the way you roll back globalism is they join because they want more money, they want more customers. Well, we bring them customers. We actually do some free marketing for their business by creating marketing videos for their business. And we don't get into all the scary fearmonger truther stuff at all. Like it's not conducive for their business. It doesn't help them stay in business. It actually scares their customers away. Because who wants to buy a T-shirt if they're, afraid of a bank collapse or something? So you just go in there and you give them the currency for free. We give those local businesses 20 hours each 3 months. That currency then circulates among the local independent businesses that join the system. And that's the way we get the currency circulating. And it creates a self-sufficient system. We have a grocery store, about 10 restaurants. We have 100 businesses total. Paul Glover's system actually had 400 or 500 businesses, so his was much bigger than ours. But we've just been doing this a year. But what's nice about it is you can really recruit a whole lot of businesses quickly because you're just giving them the currency for free. It doesn't cost them anything to join this barter network and participate in the system. So it's just a matter of changing minds and getting them to take a bit of a leap of faith to start accepting this currency as all or a portion of their transaction. But just like you're saying is, if we're depending upon everybody to move out to the country and become homesteaders, that's a very big paradigm shift for them to do that because they have to take their kids out of schools and it's just too difficult for many. But what we can do with these local currencies is right in the community where they live in is we can gradually, slowly, without major dislocation, major disruption of what they do on a daily basis, slowly and gradually get them to start using small amounts of this currency and gradually become more and more self-sufficient, gradually start creating more and more of our products locally, gradually stop shopping at the big boxes as much. So it allows a system where we can slowly move off the dominant system and gain independence, sovereignty, and self-sufficiency.
What about things, I don't want to bring a negative up, but it's something that we have to consider, considering the people that are lording over us right now are pretty much criminals and counterfeiters. What about counterfeiting? Is that a problem? Somebody's got a printing press. What's to keep them from running off a bunch of hours? How do you control that?
That really hasn't been a problem at all. It's never been an issue. But we have counterfeiting becomes a technology issue. And there's things that we do with the type of paper. We have serial numbers, and ultimately all of the currency. This is a fundamental shift in to recognize where the value comes from. Everybody knows that. Just think we get a restaurant. A restaurant, if they wanted to get some gift certificates made up, they would call the local printer and they would ask the printer to make up some, like a generic gift certificate for Bill's Pizza Shop. So they put some, like a border around a certificate-looking thing, and the printer would give him pieces of paper, right? But that gift certificate does not become valuable until the business signs it themselves. Bill of Bill's Pizza would have to sign the gift certificate in order to authenticate it. Well, that's what we do with the currency, is all of the mountain hours have a signature of a wedding signature by the business who issued the value themselves. So by cross-referencing the signature and the serial number, we're able to authenticate and verify that they're all being produced by the correct individual. And ultimately, there's things that you can do with, invisible ink or barcodes or invisible barcodes, and it becomes a technology game. But right now, this is a small system, but once these are created county by county, and that's another really essential reason why it's important to keep them local, is the more local this is, each of the local communities are much more available to they know each other. They know the individuals who are signing the currency. They're able to track these and organize them much more effectively in a small group. Whereas when it's the Federal Reserve, it's like this massive thing, this massive monolithic centralized system. So by keeping it local and organic and decentralized, we're able to much more effectively keep the control local and resist any threats of counterfeiting.
And by working with the sheriff and the city and the county managers, the sheriff would be in charge of, or potentially could be in charge of distributing the currency and enforcing, keeping it all on the up and up. In other words, I mean, we're not talking about rebelling. You're not.
Thing is that
Go ahead.
we have to. The dominant system just kind of really downplays, but we know, but we, the control of the money and the circulation, they don't even, issue what the circulation is anymore. We have to change our thoughts of money, and we always talk about the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendments are about, we know about those natural rights. What we have to change our value system is the most important natural right for sovereign human beings to have is their right to issue currency based upon their own productivity. Once we become educated about that essential natural right, we won't be so cavalier with using other people's money. Because as soon as we use other groups' money, we lose our capacity to control and protect our other natural rights. That's why all of our other natural rights are under threat, is because we've had our control of issuance of money usurped. The usurpers usurp our sovereignty through control of the monetary system. The people working at the TSA and the police and the military, they're not doing all this stuff because they love the bankers or something. It's not that they love tyranny. It's just that they live in a scarce system and they're forced to sell their souls in order to make money. They just have houses, they have car loans and mortgages and families, and they want to protect their family, they want to provide shelter and food in abundance for their families, so people sell their souls to go serve the money changers, effectively, the den of thieves. So we have to value our own ability. Just think of it with your business. In your business should be issuing its own currency, not using gold and silver, because you're not a gold and silver miner, right? The gold and silver miner can issue their own currency because they control productivity of that particular thing. So your product is information, spreading awareness, et cetera, Well, the true paradigm shift is for you to issue your own currency, for the farmer to issue his own currency, the rancher to issue his currency, the automaker to issue his currency, the solar system installer to issue his currency. So the installer would issue a currency, the manufacturer of the solar panels would issue it. So all of the producers are each because they're issuing their own currency, the parasites, nobody would be using the parasites' money because only the producers are issuing currency.
All right, well, I don't really want to go out and print my own money here, but what I would like to do here is we set up the Liberty Village co-ops, and we do it county by county. If you're in this county, you use the courthouse to go pick up your food from the farmers. The farmers come into town once a week. They bring their goods in, they fill their orders, and they pay for their orders in mountain hours. Can we do that? Can we do that? Issue this mountain hours for the county, for Traverse County? Go ahead.
I think what you're getting at is, you're not a printer, so you don't want to print. What I mean by that is the county would have its own currency, like mountain hours, for instance. So you're out of Texas, right?
Yes, I'm in. I thought the safest place for me to be after being run out of 2 or 3 states and trying to kill me was to come to the body of Christ, Corpus Christi,
okay.
Hang out.
Well, I had a guy that had interviewed me one time, and he was from West Texas, and we were talking about a name called Tumbleweed Hours. So let's say, for instance, where you live, you wouldn't have to issue the currency yourself. You wouldn't have to print it. Your county, let's say that you created Tumbleweed Hours. the sheriff, in conjunction with a cooperative of local independent businesses, you would print up a common currency that all looked the same. You'd use a template that looks roughly the same as what we have here in Mountain Hours. The difference is that they would give you pieces of paper, but you would actually sign the currency because it was issued based upon your value. So you would actually sign the currency and then put it into circulation. So now the currency that you issued, you would take that and go buy some produce from the local farmer. The local farmer would take currency that he issued, and he would buy advertising from you on your radio show. So that's how the system works, is you have a common currency. It looks the same in your county, but they give you pieces of paper. You actually sign them to birth them into circulation.
Your Mountain Hours, anybody that issues your Mountain Hours, they have to sign the currency, or do you sign the currency?
No, I do not, because I don't provide the value. The local independent businesses sign them and birth them into existence the same way that a restaurant owner would with gift certificates.
Okay, so if we started the co-op, but now we want to do this co-op every Saturday. We want the farmers to bring it in, and we also want our home gardeners. I'd like to see people. You know, you're in Colorado. You got a few obstacles there. They want to control the water that falls on your roof. Can't have a rain barrel there. More tyranny, I'd say. You know,
Well, I'm glad you brought up the farmer's market model. A good way to view this is just imagine you had a farmer's market with, you know, all of the products. There's some farmers, but in addition to that, there's people that make jelly or jam or leather products or whatever. But just imagine you had 100 tables at the farmer's market, and generally they're mostly owner-operators, right?
yes.
Well, just imagine that all of those farmers, or those owner-operators, every single one of them issued $200 worth of a local currency. Every single owner-operator, or every table at that farmer's market. So now you have 100, and they created $200 a piece. Now you have a currency system that's entirely credit-based. There's no debt in that system whatsoever. There's no outside control. There's no third-party parasitism that is stealing their energy. And, you know, let's say they, as a group, they decided to hire their own security guy. And the security guy was to make sure that, you know, nobody was perpetrating tyranny upon them, and that individual, let's call that the sheriff. Well, in this system, unlike Detroit, Detroit had a debt, right? And that debt eventually became so onerous or unpayable that it bankrupted them, right? Well, in this monetary system of that 100 producers, they not only would they would never go bankrupt, they would also never be in debt. And as I said before, as soon as you go into debt, borrower is slave to the lender. This 100 producers, they would be sovereign because they never borrowed any money from anyone. That's the power of the system. It is the only sovereign system because they're the only ones that you know, they're exchanging energy with one another with this barter strip. However, if they wanted, let's say your community, for instance, you know, they can produce lots of things such as farming, and they have a long grow season. But let's say there's something that they couldn't produce. Let's say there's not any iron in that area, and they can't build cars, for instance. So they would have to trade with another sovereign community that's up in the Rust Belt or whatever. So they want to, you know, and the difference is they're making cars that they can power with hemp or some other organic fuel. You know, I'm sure if they have farms there, that means they can grow hemp, which means they can have hemp oil. which means they can have hemp oil-powered cars.
In one state only right now. Colorado's the only one. You just started your first hemp farm. And by the way, folks, about 1913, there were hemp fields on the back of your $10 bills.
Yep. So what's powerful about that is this local currency. Here, we would accept your local currency as long as we can take ours and spend it in your system. And the biggest thing for the local community to do is the most important thing that the sheriff should make sure of, the accountants, all of those CPAs that we have right now collecting revenue on behalf of the money lenders, they should go to work and make sure that the currency is being issued in a way that's not being corrupted, that the system has integrity, because in order for your system, if your system has integrity, then other communities will accept it for stuff that you don't have an abundance. You might have an abundance of food that you want to sell to other communities. Where we live up here, we're at 10,000 feet. We actually have snow year-round, so we have an extremely short growing season. So we're dependent upon other communities to supply us for food. We don't have any natural resources to make cars or something like that. So we want to make sure that our system has a lot of integrity, so that we can spend our currency in these other systems, so that we can buy food, that we can buy cars. But we also want to fuel those cars with things that we can create here locally. For instance, we have a member here that is joining up that recycles grease. Now, with this recycled grease, they can put that in diesel vehicles, and so that grease is something that's reconstituted locally. They reprocess it, and that can be put into diesel trucks. So this is a powerful way that we can use our currency, which is sovereign, and use this recycled grease, which is local and organic. So it creates for independent systems.
Yeah, thank you, Willie Nelson. I appreciate your work in that.
Sure.
Biodiesel.
Done too with solar powered cars. They have plug-in hybrids. You can plug in your car to a solar system, and that's another system that gets us off the petrodollar.
And by the way, the first transcontinental Los Angeles to New York flight has just been achieved by a solar-powered aircraft.
That's awesome, yeah.
Not a drop of gasoline for a cross-country trip. Almost as good as a UFO,
Well, yeah, you think, we live in a petroleum economy, and the Federal Reserve note is the global reserve currency. Well, what they did is they tied those two systems of monopolization, the petroleum along with the petrodollar. So you think of the petrodollar, well, the path to emancipation, to break up that monopoly, is this organic money, the hour system, where the have-nots issue it, and then you couple that with an energy system. It could be solar, it could be hemp, it could be recycled grease. But when you combine the organic money along with an organic energy system, and that organic energy system is going to be different in different areas. Some areas have more sun, some areas have more hemp capacity, some areas have more grease recycling capacity. But when you couple that independent monetary system with an independent food system, with an independent energy system, those are the core things that you need to have independence. It comes from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need food, water, shelter, transportation, energy. Once we build these things, we don't have to have a majority. We just need to build an independent local system that allows independent shelter, food, water, energy, transportation. You could get 10, 20, 30, or 40 people together that if they really focused on that, where you have independent money, independent food, independent water, independent where you're building houses, without, we can have loans without interest. So now you can have a path to loaning money where typically most people get a 30-year mortgage. By eliminating interest, you can eliminate 20 years of payments on a 30-year mortgage. So you have a 10-year mortgage for the same payment as a 30-year. Now you're offering something to the community where they can get out of debt slavery to the bankers 20 years early. This is the way that we offer a system that provides massive, we're not surviving off-grid, you know what I mean? We're building massive abundance within our community.
You know, one of the, you have, I looked at, when I was planning on doing my Liberty Villages on my 5 acres in New Mexico, I looked at cabins. There were cabins on wheels available. Nice looking little things made by Cavco. But up in Colorado, they also had teepees and yurts. So you could purchase a teepee for under $5,000 that served the Indians well for thousands of years. And you make those right there in Colorado. So you could probably do all of this with your mountain hours and provide some housing for people to help you on your farm or your ranch, or and I suggest that you hire a veteran to you could do this all with mountain hours, so people could actually buy their own homes and buy their own structures.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could build it, and another way to view this is that, you know, there's a phrase that the universal maxim of law says, fraud vitiates all contracts. Right now, all of the mortgage contracts are based on interest. Well, interest is a debt penalty. If the banker loans out 10 loans, even at 1% to 10 people, it's mathematically, they create a situation where it's mathematically impossible. It's impossible for all of those borrowers to pay their house back. It's mathematically guaranteed that at least one of them is going to default. And that's the methodology where the bankers have conquested the world. They slowly they bankrupt and foreclose upon individuals, they foreclose upon local governments, and then they do that to national governments. We should view usury as a methodology of territorial conquest, because over time it will slowly bankrupt all of the borrowers. Well, as I said, that's a system of fraud. It's a mathematics fraud. Well, any system that's based upon fraud, number one, fraud has no statute of limitations, and fraud vitiates all contracts. That means all of those houses that the bankers own right now that have been foreclosed upon, they were all stolen. It's called theft through color of law. It's the appearance that they were taken lawfully. However, it was because it was mathematically impossible for all of those borrowers to pay the loans, it created a racketeering system that all of those properties should rightfully go back to the original borrowers. The bank didn't provide the value. The bank didn't put up anything of value, whereas the homeowner did. So all of those vacant houses belong to the have-nots. They belong to the people. So all of those houses which are currently sitting vacant, they should be, all those homeless veterans, all those homeless families, the Jubilee Sheriff will have the capacity to take those back from the bankers and put the people right back into them. That is the way for us to really show compassion for humanity instead of the den of thieves who have stolen all of these houses.
I agree with that, and I'd like to suggest a couple of caveats on that. If you take 2 or 3 or half a dozen veterans and put them into a vacant, repossessed home, and you have them turn the backyard into a garden and the roof into a power system, you can basically have that house pay for itself, refund any of their labor from this using your mountain hours system, and Now I've always run my businesses for 30 years out of my home. Now, if I can add solar and wind generator and a garden in the backyard, I'm actually getting my home to cover its operating expenses and to pay for itself and to be a source of income for me. That's what I'd like to see started. That's why I refer to bringing the country back to the city, because your little block there in Denver or Dallas, that block that you're on, that was farmland once. Why can't we take it backwards a step or two? Go back to 1903.
Yeah, and you know, think of all these factories with globalism that are vacant now. Is you know, to build solar systems, to convert cars over to plug-in hybrids, or convert them to run on hemp or grease or something along those lines. The whole key to all this is, you know, we are all children of God, the Creator. However, we are all created in His image, and that means that we all have the spark of creation within us. Rather than being destroyers of brown people across the planet, destroyers acting as minions for Satan, basically, or the den of thieves, we should be creators, creating sovereign communities, creating independent systems, building cars which are plug-in hybrids or run off these independent systems. We should be creating and growing things. We shouldn't be destroying. We should be building.
Wayne, thank you very much for being on my show. We'll be in touch. I plan to incorporate your mountain hours into our Liberty Village co-ops. I'll need your advice on how to do that. Thank you very much. God bless.
Check out Upper Money Free on Amazon.com for $3.
FreedomSocialism.com. We'll be right back after this message.
What here will remain a dictatorship.
Oh, be quiet.
Why are you guys so anti-dictator? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prison with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
You're losing the job. The dollar buys the people's way. Banks are going to stop you to keep them silent for terrorists. Bunch are running wild in the streets and nobody anywhere seems to know what to do with themselves into it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, our food is unfit to eat. We know things are bad, worse than bad. I want you to get mad. I want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman. I don't know what I tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the fucking crime in the streets. All I know is this, but you've got to get mad. For my sake, I'm a human being. Yo! Be here Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and near the news. Brentwood. Because when it's time to crush, it's time for Jason. Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
this is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, sir, sister. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs, government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomsons.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Now you can share the topics that drive the discussions of your favorite talk shows with TalkStream Live's topic-driven talk radio. Listen and promote real-time talk radio topics, or